Hey, there he is.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And yourself, Rory?
Very, very good, man. Yeah. Excited to chat, dude.
Cool. Let me hit one more record button and we'll get the party started here. Killer, man. Well, appreciate the time. Want to get into the new album, of course, the tour with Silverstein and get your opinion on a couple things. But dude, let's start off with some hometown talk. I grew up in Orange County. We're an Inland Empire radio station. I know that you kind of feel like me, probably like we get no respect being from Orange County or IE, living in the shadow of LA. But wanted to talk a little Orange County with you. Where exactly are you guys from Orange County?
We're honestly all kind of spread about from Tustin. I'm in Fountain Valley, and then we have another guy that's in San Diego too. So not even technically Orange County.
So that's what confused me on the bio. It said like Orange County, San Diego, and I was like, well, those are two very different places.
Yeah, we've claimed to be from San Diego, Los Angeles, Orange County, just kind of whatever fits what show we're playing at the time, honestly.
Whatever fits the narrative. I get you.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm kind of curious too. Growing up in Orange County, where are you from? Tustin?
No, I was actually born in Anaheim, and I spent most of my life there, actually.
Okay, so kind of a North Orange County guy like myself. That was me. Anaheim, Fullerton, Garbage Grove, that whole area, kind of growing.
Yeah, ex Garbage Grove, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah,
talking about. So
yeah.
kind of curious too, man. Growing up in Orange County, there aren't a lot, but there are a few examples. And I'm kind of curious if there was any Orange County bands that kind of gave you the inspiration, like, hey, they did it. We could do it, like an Atreyu or a Thrice or even like an Offspring or anything like that. Was there any Orange County band that you grew up with that was kind of like, those guys are doing it? I can do it too. I'm a kid from Tustin. I can make it.
That's funny you said thrice, because that was literally who I was gonna say. Because I have a thrice tattoo. They're like probably like my longest standing favorite band that I've listened to from like since I was 14, and I'm gonna be 34 this year, so like pretty much 20 years. And yeah, I know they're local, and I know a couple of people who know those guys, and it was definitely a really cool thing to see like in high school, just be like, well, they were just like a local kind of punk band at one point, and now they're like I feel like they're like a legacy rock band for Orange County. So they were very, very inspiring to say the least.
Dude, I love what they're doing. They're going out and playing Artist in the Ambulance this summer in its entirety. I love that. My
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
from them, and stoked to see them at the House of Blues and I'm on that tour.
Yeah, man. I really liked the one after that called Visu and
Yeah.
the Alchemy Index. Like they have, I mean, I usually find something to love on almost everything they've put out. But yeah, love those guys, man. And yeah, Artist in the Ambulance is a timeless record. It's great.
Yeah, love that, man. And they did a re-record of it too, with some guest vocals, kind of like a 20th anniversary edition, which was really cool too.
I heard that it was awesome, man. It's funny hearing his voice like just years later, because I feel
Yeah.
like it's not like he's gotten old, but it's just I think it's just like if you tour for 20 years, your voice is probably gonna change. But he just has so much character in his voice. It's really cool to hear.
Yeah, you can hear the miles on the odometer when he's singing.
Yeah, I am patiently waiting for that to catch up with me as well. So we will see.
Well, dude, let's talk a little Dayseeker music, and I'm kind of curious, man. No way to not talk about these past couple years we've all had to endure with this pandemic craziness. And you guys were on a tear doing an album every 2 years, and then whoops, this pandemic hits, and then Dark Sun ends up being 3 years. So, kind of take me back to like the craziness when it started, like March of 2020. Where were you guys kind of at with the new album at that point?
Um, well, by that point, we had an album before Dark Sun called Sleep Talk, and that album had only been out, I think, for maybe 5 months or so, by the time the pandemic hit. So we were still kind of trying to ride the high from that record, and we were actually in the middle of a tour when the pandemic hit. We had been out for a week, and we were out in Massachusetts, and then we just got word like, yeah, tour's postponed. You can just drive home. And they were like, oh, we'll push it out like 4 months, but this should be over in like 3 or 4 weeks, so it should be super safe. And then just like a year and a half later, here we are. But no, it was kind of interesting because I feel like it allowed our prior record Sleep Talk to kind of sit out and kind of marinate with a bunch of people because you couldn't go to shows or do anything. And it was really interesting because by the time we came back to play music again and we got in front of crowds, there was like such a huge shift in popularity where we were like, oh, this is like different, but in a really good way though. And you're right though that we were on a pretty consistent like 2 year cycle, and then our label was kind of asking us like in the middle of the pandemic, like, yeah, what's up with that new album? We were like, dude, we got like one tour that we got to do off Sleep Talk, so we pushed it a bit. We did a headliner where we only played like Sleep Talk basically, and then we felt like that would be a good time to kind of like start transitioning into the newer record past that point.
Yeah. So about what time did you start working on Dark Sun then? About what time roughly?
It was, let me see. Uh it was about a year and a half ago, honestly. Yeah, it's crazy that we like around the time it was releasing in November of 2022. It was funny, your social media gives you like reminders of things you were doing a year ago, and I
Right.
was getting videos that I was like in the studio just starting to work on it. So it was about a year long process, but we would go in maybe like 2, 3 times a week. Like we used to do that thing where we would go to like a remote location for 4 to 6 weeks and just like hammer out a full length. And there's no disrespect to that, but I really feel like us taking our time like we did with Dark Sun and the record before it, I feel like it allows us to kind of like, you might be working on something for like 6 months, and then after a while like that song kind of sucks, huh? Or it's not that good. So I think it allows you to like create an album without burning yourself out really easily. So it was the better part of a year that we spent working on Dark Sun.
And kind of a heavy topic behind it and some heavy themes, kind of the loss of your dad and then the birth of your daughter at the same time, which strangely enough, I lost my dad several years ago too. So I feel your pain and condolences, man. But
Yeah, sorry to hear that, man.
the new life, I think does kind of help out when you're losing somebody to have that new life and bring a child into this world at the same time, kind of helps fill that void in your heart a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. It was, I mean, not to get too dark, but when my dad was in hospice, like the last couple days he was alive. I mean, it's a pretty dark setting with
Yeah.
everybody in the room just like kind of preparing for the worst. But then, I'd be like crying 1 second, and then I'd look over, and then my daughter is just blissfully unaware as to like
Yep.
the heavy scene she's in. So she'd be like smiling or laughing, and it would kind of like it would sort of take away like how dark of a setting it was, and definitely like, yeah, I don't know what that process would have been like if I didn't have my daughter, because it was just such an easy thing to like distract me and kind of fill me with a lot of happiness and joy in a really horrible time. And yeah, but it is a trip though, because like it's like we have our family get together still like for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and it's all like it's still like it's weird. It's almost like my dad traded places with my daughter or something, because I we were like going to do Thanksgiving after he passed, and I was like, oh, it's weird. It's like the same amount of people, but it's just my dad isn't here anymore. But no, it's great being a parent. I feel like honestly having my daughter made me love and respect my dad a lot more, because it's not easy. It really isn't.
Show you what love's all about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I don't know if you have kids, but it's definitely like you can't really fathom it. It's not like you love your sister, your brothers, your parents, a girlfriend, like partner. It's just like the highest amount of love I think you can have for another human being.
Totally, totally. Well, man, I appreciate you being so open and honest about such a heavy topic and to not get all down and depressed. Let's kind of switch things up. Talk about the tour. You got to be pumped for this tour, man. Going out with Silverstein, another band that started 20 plus years ago. I'm sure you grew up on that first Silverstein album. And talk to me about going out with these guys. You got to be pumped. We got you in the IE at RMA Riverside Municipal Auditorium coming up here on Friday, April the 21st.
Yeah, just really excited, man. as you said, yeah, I grew up listening to those guys. Like literally in high school, I loved Silverstein. I've gotten to do Shane's podcast, Lead Singer Syndrome, a couple of times, and he's just the best guy, and everybody just says that they're the nicest group in the world. So really excited, and I'm excited to play Riverside because I'm almost 100% positive that the last time we played Riverside was like 8 years ago, and it was a hookah bar venue, and I wish I could remember the name, but it was not a good time.
You know what? It's funny because I was going to ask you about that too. If you had to have played the IE at some point, was it Mission Tobacco Lounge,
That sounds kind of familiar, actually. Yeah,
like
it was.
downtown Riverside?
I think so. It was a very interesting setup, but I've heard really really good things about the RMA, so I'm excited, man.
Yeah, no, the RMA is gorgeous, gorgeous old school venue, a little 1400, I think it fits. So it's a beautiful amphitheater, great sound in there as well. So you're gonna dig it. But yeah, man, outside of that gig, did you go up coming out to IE shows like Showcase Theater in Corona, like is a popular spot?
I didn't really, I just spent most of my time going to shows. I was in a local band in like La Habra and Whittier when I was
Yeah,
18. So Chain Reaction
that's
was
what I was
a
gonna say.
pretty, yeah, it's just like you know, the GOAT small club in Orange County, Chain Reaction.
Doll Hut.
Man, yeah, Doll Hut. I've played a venue called the Green Turtle before in Whittier, which is like I think it was like a Chinese restaurant. It was, that was those were like some times, back in the day. But yeah, honestly, yeah, just so much Chain Reaction, and then every once in a while, I had to LA for the whiskey or just those kind of places out
Yeah,
there.
totally, totally. Well, dude, I appreciate all the time. Last couple things I wanted to hit you with. Speaking individually, dude, I love that tune that you did with Varsity a few years back. I love Joey Varela, and your
Yeah,
voice and his voice is like, oh my god, I didn't even realize it. Because I kind of came onto the scene with them when they put out their first Spine Farm record or the EP, Cloud City EP, is kind of when they came on my radar. And then I saw that you did a tune with them, and I looked back and was like, oh yeah, no brainer. Your voices together are perfect. And I looked it up. That tune came out 2018, and now they're on Spine Farm in 2020. Did you kind of help negotiate that, or not negotiate it, but at least
facilitate.
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Kind of make that introduction.
No, that's funny. I had no part in that at all. Spine Farm, they have an interesting radar with their A&R where I think they just try and look out for bands that they think are like about to get very popular before they do. Because they definitely took like a risk with us. I think they took a risk with Varsity. I think they did the same thing with another band called Sleep Token a
Oh
couple of
yeah.
years ago, and I loved Sleep Token when they signed them. I was really excited, but it feels like only a couple months ago did they kind of like people start really paying attention to who they were. So no, it was just fate, man. I wish I could say I had some hand in that, but I think it's just because those guys were talented and Spine Farm noticed it.
How did you meet up with Joey? Being an East Coast band and you West Coast.
Yeah, man, Joey, I met on some of our earliest tours like 9 or 10 years ago, and he's been a supporter of Dayseeker since like I want to say our first or second record, and yeah, he showed a lot of love to us when we were playing to like 10 people in Brooklyn, not too long ago. And there was even a time like just in I want to say maybe yeah, 2017, 2018, he like let us crash in his small apartment in New York. He's always been just very kind and very supportive of us. So got a lot of love for that guy.
Glad to hear. Yeah, he's a good dude, and rooting for him, and always like to spread some varsity love. Dude, I appreciate all the time. Last thing I got to hit you with, we're an old school radio station. We do a feature called Mandatory Metallica every night at 10 p.m., which you're going to be a part of. Kind of curious if you went through that Guitar Hero or maybe skateboarding phase when you got into Metallica.
What's funny is I never really got into Metallica growing up. I mean, they were impossible to avoid though.
Right.
Like it was just obviously like Enter Sandman, Saint Anger. I actually just watched a few months ago that documentary that they did like 20 years ago. I forget what it was called, but it was really interesting actually.
Some kind
But
of monster.
Yeah. Dude, it was awesome. It was really I was really surprised. Like I'm like, this is a pretty raw and unfiltered look at your band. But no, honestly, like they're so talented and they seem like great guys and like they write great music. I don't know why. I just like I think I was just so much more into like I wanted like yelly, screamy metal when I was like 14 and 15. Like I was really into like Under Oath and The Used. I wanted stuff that I guess was like more like emo when I was a teenager in my prime. So I never really hit like my crazy Metallica phase, but I have a lot of respect for them.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that movie, a band at its worst, like falling apart at the seams, out of rehab. But you got to give them credit for showing warts and all, because a lot of people would hide that stuff. I mean, all the respect in the world to those guys.
No, totally. There were a lot of moments on that documentary that they weren't pretty and they weren't flattering to what was happening to their band. And I think that's what was so cool about it though, because a lot of any other times you see like documentaries put together about musicians, it's always polished in a way to make them look very normal and happy, successful. And yeah, it was just a really raw look at like I mean, we've never really gotten to that point. I mean, we're pretty mellow. We don't really we drink, we don't do a ton of drugs. It's just like I don't know. I feel like I got lucky that I didn't get into like a party band or anything, but it's no, I have a lot of respect for them, man. That was a really raw look at what it is to be in a band.
And crazy, 20 years later, you know what they're doing this summer? They're playing 2 nights in every town. They're doing SoFi Stadium, 2 nights, no repeat weekend, different opening bands each night, like 40 plus years into their career. Like, how can that not be inspiring for any band?
No, it definitely is. I think that's the crazy thing is that it seemed like they were on the cusp of breaking up that entire documentary, and then obviously it didn't happen. I'm like, and it's not even like they had a rise and fall where they seemed to lack popularity. I'm like, yeah, you're 40 years later, still just like arguably like one of the biggest rock or not even rock, just one of the biggest like metal bands in the world. So yeah, a lot of love for those guys, man.
For mandatory Metallica, what Metallica tune can we play for you? What would it be? Enter Sandman or Saint Anger? Which one?
I would go with Saint Anger. Yeah, it's a good one.
Even though the trash can steel drum,
Dude, I think it has character. I love it, man.
sign of the times, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious for this thing, is this like do you use the audio for the show on the station or is it like on your guys' YouTube or something or
Both. It'll be on the station website and it will air on the radio.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool, dude. It's funny. You definitely you played a song off Sleep Talk like years ago, but it was funny. Like we had like no we like didn't know that was happening. I just had a friend go like, "Hey, I heard your song on on the rock station in Riverside this morning." I was like, "What?" And I think I told Spine Farm. I was like, like it's crazy because I think you guys were literally like the first like radio station to give us playtime. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I for sure played Sleep Talk. Been a fan. So and like the
Yeah,
support Orange County bands too, of course. Beautiful, man.
yeah,
Thank you so much for the time. Can't wait to see you guys at RMA, and hopefully you'll be hitting the crowd afterwards and running around. Maybe I'll get a chance to say hi.
yeah. I try not to go into the like man. I'm not trying to say it like an egotistical way. It's just when I go into the crowds these days, it's kind of a shit show, and I notice like I get sick so easily. Like if I like when we had a COVID tour where like I didn't interact with the crowd at all, and I got through the whole thing without getting sick, and I was like, imagine that, because every time somebody comes up to you, they're like talking this close to your face, or they want to shake your hand, and I'll usually I'll be out and about at some point, maybe grabbing a drink, but I mean. Do they let you go like backstage or anything? I mean, you're with the rock station. I feel like they should.
Sometimes, dude, it's like a back box of my magic. Like I never know what I'm gonna get. Sometimes I show up and there's passes, and then sometimes it's just tickets and have a nice day. So I never know.
Gotcha, man. Yeah. Well, hey, you're pretty recognizable. So if I see you, I'll definitely grab you and give you a shout.
Beautiful, man. I appreciate the time. Best of luck with the tour, and hope to see you out there on the 21st April.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate
Appreciate the
it.
time. Thanks, Roy. Have a good one. Bye bye.